This is Audible.
Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents The Master and His Emissary, The Divided Brain and the Making of the Western World, by Iain McGilchrist. Narrated by Dennis Kleinman. Preface to the new expanded edition. Psychiatrist debunks the left brain, right brain myth, the headline proclaims. Always interested to learn more, I read on, only to discover that the psychiatrist in question is myself. This puts its finger on the nub of the matter. I don't believe in the left brain, right brain myth. I believe in discovering the truth about hemisphere difference. There can be no question that it would be foolish to believe most of what has passed into popular culture on the topic of hemisphere differences, and yet it would be just as foolish to believe that therefore there are no important hemisphere differences. There are massively important ones which lie at the core of what it means to be a human being. It's just that we've been barking up the wrong tree. When people object that each hemisphere is involved in everything we do, they are right. When they assume that means there are no differences, they are wrong. It's not what each hemisphere does, but how it does it that matters. Each hemisphere is involved in everything, true enough, just in a quite different way. When The Master and His Emissary came out in November 2009, I was hoping that a handful of people might find its thesis truly interesting. I even hoped that they might feel inspired to take the ideas further, but I anticipated that otherwise it would be largely ignored. Partly this was because of its topic. My colleagues and mentors in the world of psychiatry and neurology had, from the very outset some 30 years ago, counseled me against getting involved in laterality research, since it was stigmatized within the neuroscience world due to its appropriation by pop psychology. They also warned me correctly that it would involve going back to the drawing board. All the things we thought we knew about hemisphere difference had been shown, one by one, to be either wrong or, at best, half-truths. That had led, in somewhat defeatist fashion, I have to say, to its being given up as a bad job. And those who gave up reconciled themselves to the lost time and effort by proclaiming loudly their own myth that there are no significant hemisphere differences. I knew enough, however, to realize that there were fascinating intellectual puzzles here that were simply too important to neglect, whatever the cost in terms of career. They demanded further investigation. For example, every known creature with a neuronal system, however far down the evolutionary tree one goes, and however far back in time, has a system that is asymmetrical. Why on earth would that be, given that the world they are interacting with is not asymmetrical? I was already involved in neuroimaging research on the loss of normal brain asymmetry in schizophrenia that was clearly bearing fruit, so I couldn't help seeing the topic as potentially of some significance. When, after 20 years of research, I arrived at the point of publication of this book, I believed I would face a hostile establishment. With few exceptions, that has not been the case, and thankfully, some of the best-known names in neuroscience are on record as engaging seriously with the book's thesis. I also expected, of course, the usual faction of self-appointed myth debunkers who would feel comfortably one-up on the gullible masses by professing that there was nothing in it without the bore of acquainting themselves with the evidence before pronouncing. I imagine there have been plenty of those, but that is neither here nor there. The other reason I did not expect the book to be widely studied as it was, because it is, I admit, demanding. I took pains to write it as clearly as I could, without, I hope, ever talking down to my audience, instead meeting them on a level footing to get grips with issues in neuroscience and philosophy, though without presuming any prior knowledge. I aim to explain what I saw in terms that any interested non-specialist should be able to understand. But neuropsychology and phenomenological philosophy probably aren't everyone's idea of easy. 10 years on, I have been genuinely astonished by the completely unforeseen extent to which this book has been taken up by people in every discipline, and from every walk of life. It has already sold over 100,000 copies, and has students all over the world. I think the reason for this must